Amber and Trent Johnston officially divorce announcement today. The story of a modern fairy tale doesn't always end with a happily ever after. Sometimes it concludes with a quiet, devastating silence that echoes far louder than any wedding bell ever could. This is the story of Amber and Trent Johnston, a couple whose relationship wasn't just a private affair but a carefully constructed public monument to the idea of modern love. They were the golden children of the internet age, a beacon of aspirational living, proving that you could have it all: a thriving business, a beautiful family, a picture-perfect home, and a love that seemed to defy the impossible odds of their generation. They curated a reality that millions bought into, a digital sanctuary where partnership was the bedrock upon which empires were built and dreams were realized. And that's precisely why the news of their official separation doesn't feel like just another headline from the celebrity gossip mill. It feels like a seismic shift in the cultural landscape. The announcement itself, a carefully worded joint statement released to the press and shared across their social media platforms, was a masterclass in controlled narrative. But behind the carefully chosen words, we sense a fracture, a crack in the facade that the public had worshipped for so long. Their divorce isn't just the end of a marriage. It represents the shattering of a collective dream, a moment where we are forced to reconcile the seamless, curated images we see on our screens with the messy, complicated reality of human connection. Welcome, and thank you for joining us as we dissect the layers of this extraordinary and deeply human story. We're not just here to report on the breakdown of a relationship. We're here to explore why this particular announcement has struck such a profound chord with so many people. We'll examine the narrative they built, the pressures of living a life under the public microscope, and the universal struggles that even the most successful among us face in the quiet moments when the cameras are off. This isn't a story about salacious gossip or assigning blame. It is a deep dive into the anatomy of a modern love story that has reached its final, heartbreaking chapter. We aim to understand the forces that brought them together, the immense weight of their shared success, and the invisible pressures that slowly, over time, pulled them apart. By understanding their journey, we might just glean a deeper understanding of our own complexities and the true price of authenticity in a world obsessed with presentation. To truly grasp the shockwaves caused by the Johnston divorce announcement, we have to first understand the empire they built together. Their story wasn't one of celebrity scandal. It was one of endearing, relatable success. They were the couple next door. If the couple next door happened to have a wildly successful lifestyle brand, an enviable home, and a charisma that translated seamlessly from the small screen to the ever-scrolling feeds of Instagram and TikTok. They met not in the glare of Hollywood spotlights, but in a context that felt genuine, a shared passion or a serendipitous meeting that formed the foundation of a powerful partnership. From that initial spark, they built a business that capitalized on their combined talents and their undeniable chemistry. They weren't just partners in life. They were co-CEOs of their own destiny, creating content that resonated with a generation yearning for authenticity and connection. Their brand was built on the idea of a power couple, a term so often thrown around but which they seemed to genuinely embody. They were a team, a united front that navigated the treacherous waters of internet fame with grace and intelligence. Their content was a carefully curated blend of lifestyle, parenting, and relationship advice. They invited their audience into their home, showing us glimpses of their family life, their struggles, and their triumphs. They made motherhood and fatherhood look both idyllic and manageable, a combination that was deeply appealing to their massive following. Their children became beloved figures in their online world, symbols of the beautiful life they had created together. For millions of followers, the Johnstons provided a template for a successful modern marriage, one that could withstand the pressures of a fast-paced world while maintaining a sense of fun and genuine affection. This was the story they told, and it was a story that sold, not just in terms of sponsorship deals and product lines, but in terms of hope. They sold the idea that you could have a partner, a career, and a family, all without losing yourself in the process. They offered a blueprint for happiness, and millions eagerly consumed it, eager to build their own lives using their example. Their brand was, in essence, a promise that the modern dream was attainable and that love could conquer all. The initial reaction to the divorce announcement wasn't the typical tabloid frenzy of shock and betrayal. It was a deep, collective sense of sadness, a mourning of an ideal that had become deeply personal to so many. When the carefully worded statement hit the internet, it was met with an outpouring of grief from their followers, a testament to the profound impact they had on their audience. The comment sections on their posts became virtual support groups, with fans expressing their heartbreak and sending messages of love and solidarity to a couple they had never met. This wasn't just gossip, it was a public heartbreak playing out on a global stage. The statement itself was a masterpiece of diplomacy, promising to co-parent and remain friends, a narrative of conscious uncoupling designed to minimize damage to their brand and their families. But for a public so deeply invested in their story, the subtext was clear. The fairy tale was over. The announcement didn't just end a marriage, it dismantled a deeply cherished myth, leaving a void in the hearts of their followers. People didn't just lose two influencers, they lost a symbol of what they believed a successful, modern relationship could be. However, as we dig deeper, we begin to see that the story is far more complex than a simple narrative of a happy marriage just ending. Sources close to the family began to whisper about the enormous pressures that came with their lifestyle. The business that had been their shared dream became a source of relentless stress and conflict. When your job is to document your life, the line between personal and professional blurs into an unrecognizable smear. The constant need to produce content, to maintain a perfect image, and to be on for the cameras became an exhausting performance. There were hints, often overlooked by their adoring fans, that the pressure was taking its toll. We saw their curated, beautiful videos and photos, but we didn't see the arguments over business decisions, the sacrifices of personal time for public appearances, or the sheer exhaustion of trying to be the perfect couple for an audience of millions. Living your life for an audience is a double-edged sword. It brings fame and fortune, but it also invites a level of scrutiny that can be suffocating. The cracks were there, concealed beneath a veneer of seamless editing and cheerful music, waiting for the moment they would become too wide to ignore. The real news here, the part that the statement hinted at but couldn't possibly encompass, is that even the most successful partnerships can unravel under the immense pressure of shared ambition, relentless public scrutiny, and the simple, human struggle to maintain individual identity within a we. This realization is what makes their story so deeply resonant. It forces us to question the narratives we consume and the expectations we place on ourselves. The Johnstons' divorce challenges the very concept of the power couple that we have been sold by the media. It suggests that the very qualities that make a couple seem strong, their shared ambition, their public image, and their intertwined success, can also be the very forces that tear them apart. Their story is a powerful reminder that a marriage is not just a financial or strategic partnership. It is a fragile human connection that needs constant nurturing, and it cannot survive on public adoration alone. It requires a deep, private understanding and a commitment that exists independent of the validation of millions of followers. For their audience, it's a harsh lesson in the distinction between a public persona and a private reality, and the importance of separating the fantasy of social media from the truth of everyday life. The narrative we are fed, the official statement, told us it was a conscious decision, a respectful parting of ways. But can a divorce, especially one of this magnitude, ever truly be a peaceful process? The denial, the bargaining, the anger, and the deep, profound sadness are emotions that the carefully crafted press release could never capture. We must look beyond the announcement to understand the anatomy of this collapse. It wasn't a sudden event, but a gradual erosion. It was the result of years of small compromises, each one eroding the boundaries of their personal identities. It was the quiet resentment that builds when one person's career aspirations take precedence over the others, or when the emotional labor of maintaining a public persona leaves no energy for a private relationship. The script of their lives, written and performed for a global audience, left little room for improvisation. Every smile, every family trip, every romantic gesture became part of the narrative, a product to be consumed rather than a moment to be lived. This constant performance is a factory for exhaustion, and exhaustion is the enemy of intimacy. Their split feels like the inevitable conclusion of a story where the characters were trapped by the roles they created for themselves, unable to break free from the expectations of their audience. In the quiet of their home, away from the flashing lights and the constant notifications, they had to face the truth. They were two individuals who had, in the pursuit of a shared dream, drifted so far apart that they could no longer find their way back to each other. This brings us to the crux of the matter, the why behind the what. The official line was irreconcilable differences, a legal catch-all that tells us nothing and everything all at once. But the real reasons are woven into the very fabric of our digital age. It's a story about the commodification of love, where intimacy becomes content and private moments are turned into data points. They weren't just a married couple, they were a brand, and brands must evolve. Perhaps the tragedy of Amber and Trent is that they became so successful as a brand that they forgot how to be a couple. Their relationship was a complex machine, a system designed to optimize for engagement and revenue. But a machine, no matter how well-oiled, cannot sustain a human heart. The pressures from brands and sponsorships to maintain a certain image, the constant comparison to other power couples, and the unending demand to be innovative and authentic in their content all contributed to an environment of high tension and chronic stress. They were navigating a new world where the lines between private tragedy and public content were completely blurred, a world where a simple argument could become a viral moment. The pressure to present a united front, to be aspirational and happy, inevitably stifled the very conversation and conflict that are necessary for a healthy relationship to grow and adapt. As we move forward, we must consider the future of both individuals and the legacy they leave behind. The business empire they built together is now at a crossroads, requiring an unprecedented level of cooperation and maturity to manage. Their children are now at the center of a complex co-parenting arrangement, one that will be scrutinized by a public that has, for years, watched them grow up online. This is perhaps the most profound tragedy of all. The life of their family has become a public performance, and a heartbreaking one at that. The conscious uncoupling that the statement promises is an ideal, a concept rarely achieved in the messy, emotional reality of a divorce. The legal battles over assets, the negotiation of custody, and the division of a shared life are all grueling processes, far removed from the loving images they projected. For their followers, this moment is an uncomfortable mirror, reflecting the fragility of their own relationships and prompting a necessary reassessment of the curated lives we see online. The Johnston story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that we must be careful not to confuse the image of a perfect life with the reality of living one. The response from their massive fan base was, predictably, a mixture of heartbreak, anger, and confusion. For many young women, Amber was an icon, a symbol of entrepreneurial motherhood who had it all. Trent was the ultimate supportive husband, a girl dad who redefined modern masculinity. Their collective image was more than just a couple, it was a movement, a statement about what was possible. This explains the deep shock of the announcement. It wasn't just the end of their marriage, but the shattering of a personal belief system for their fans. It forces a difficult question. What happens to a dream when its creators abandon it? The fans are left to pick up the pieces of their own aspirations, realizing that the blueprint they were following was flawed all along. This is where the real value of this story lies, not in the gossip, but in the profound educational moment it presents. It challenges the narrative of having it all and forces us to ask what it truly is. It exposes the influencer industrial complex and its relentless demand for performance. It serves as a powerful case study in the dangers of turning your private life into a public product, showing us that the price of that fame can be the very relationships we hold most dear. The story of Amber and Trent is ultimately the story of a silence that speaks volumes. It is the silence that follows the closing of a door, the silence of two individuals who have realized that the person they loved was, in many ways, a character in a script they wrote together. Now, they must write new scripts, separate ones, filled with the terrifying uncertainty of being alone after years of being us. This is a human story, not a celebrity one. It is about the universal fear of failure, the pain of loss, and the immense courage it takes to admit that something is broken beyond repair. It is about the quiet, desperate hope that even after the fairy tale ends, there can be a new beginning. As we conclude this exploration, we are left not with answers, but with a deeper appreciation for the complexity of love and the importance of protecting the private sanctuary of a relationship from the prying eyes of the world. The Johnstons' legacy will not be their divorce, but the conversation it has sparked about the nature of modern love, the pressure of public life, and the enduring, fragile power of human connection. Their story is a testament to the fact that even the most beautiful stories have chapters we can't bear to read, and sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to close the book and wish the characters well on their new, separate journeys. The first wave of shock has subsided, and now the world is left to process the aftermath of the Amber and Trent Johnston divorce announcement. What began as a carefully worded statement has now evolved into a global conversation about love, success, and the hidden costs of living your life in the public eye. The silence that followed their announcement has been deafening, filled with questions that may never receive satisfactory answers. But as we dig deeper into this story, we begin to see patterns that are all too familiar in the world of high-profile relationships. The Johnston story is not unique in its outcome, but it is unique in the way it has captured the collective imagination of millions who saw themselves reflected in this couple's carefully curated journey. The business empire that Amber and Trent built together was never just about making money. It was about creating a movement. They positioned themselves as the voice of a generation that craved authenticity, but was trapped in a world of filters and facades. Their brand was built on the promise of realness, on the idea that they were just like us, only slightly more successful and slightly more photogenic. This paradox is what made them so compelling and what ultimately made their downfall so devastating to their followers. When you build your entire brand on the foundation of transparency and authenticity, every crack in the facade becomes a chasm that threatens to swallow everything you have created. The pressure to maintain this illusion of perfection, even when your personal life is falling apart, is a burden that few can bear for long. Sources close to the couple have begun to speak, albeit anonymously, about the months leading up to the announcement. What emerges is a picture of two people who are slowly drifting apart, not because of any dramatic betrayal or scandal, but because of the quiet erosion that happens when two ambitious individuals lose sight of each other while pursuing a shared dream. The business that had brought them together had become the very thing that was pulling them apart. Every decision was scrutinized, every creative difference became a battlefield, and every moment of private joy was immediately analyzed for its content potential. They had become prisoners of their own success, trapped in a gilded cage of their own making. The tragedy is that they didn't see it happening until it was too late, and by then, the distance between them had grown too vast to bridge. The role of social media in their relationship cannot be overstated. Every post, every story, every carefully posed photograph was a tiny brick in the wall they built around their private lives. But walls work both ways. They keep people out, but they also keep you in. The Johnstons had constructed a digital fortress that protected their brand, but imprisoned their relationship. Behind the scenes, away from the cameras and the carefully crafted captions, they were two ordinary people struggling with the extraordinary weight of living their lives as public property. The constant need to perform happiness, to project success, and to maintain an image of domestic bliss took an invisible toll that no amount of therapy or couples counseling could fully address. When your marriage becomes content, the line between real intimacy and performative affection blurs until you can no longer tell the difference yourself. What makes this story particularly heartbreaking is the impact on their children. The Johnston children have grown up in front of millions of people, their milestones documented and shared with a global audience that feels a genuine connection to their lives. Now, these children must navigate the complex terrain of a divorced family while the world watches. The promise of a united front of conscious co-parenting sounds beautiful in a press release, but the reality is far messier. Children are not props in a narrative, and their emotional well-being cannot be reduced to a hashtag or a feel-good Instagram post. The Johnstons face the daunting task of protecting their children's privacy while simultaneously managing a public that feels entitled to every detail of their family life. This is the cruel irony of their situation. The very thing that made them successful, their openness and vulnerability, now makes it nearly impossible to heal in private. The financial implications of this divorce are staggering. When you build a business empire together, untangling it is like performing open-heart surgery on a living organism. Every asset, every intellectual property, every brand partnership must be carefully divided and negotiated. The legal fees alone would be enough to make anyone's head spin, but the real cost is the emotional toll of watching your life's work being dissected and divided. The Johnstons' business was more than just a source of income. It was their shared identity, their legacy, their proof that two people could build something beautiful together. Now that foundation is gone, and they must figure out who they are as individuals, separate from the brand they created together. This is perhaps the most challenging part of any high-profile divorce, discovering your own identity after years of being defined by a partnership. The response from the influencer community has been telling. Many of their peers have remained silent, unsure of what to say or how to navigate this delicate situation. Others have offered public support, sharing their own struggles with maintaining relationships under the pressure of public scrutiny. There is a growing recognition within the industry that the influencer lifestyle comes with hidden costs that are not often discussed. The constant comparison, the pressure to maintain relevance, the fear of falling behind, and the relentless demands of content creation all take a toll on personal relationships. The Johnstons' divorce has become a cautionary tale, a reminder that no amount of success or public adoration can substitute for genuine connection and private intimacy. Their story has sparked conversations about the sustainability of the influencer model and the mental health challenges that come with living your life online. As we analyze the announcement itself, we can see the fingerprints of crisis management professionals all over it. The language was carefully chosen to minimize damage, to protect both their personal and professional brands. The emphasis on mutual respect, shared parenting, and continued friendship was designed to present a picture of a mature, amicable separation. But we must ask ourselves, is this genuine or is it simply good PR? In the world of celebrity divorces, the narrative is often more important than the reality. The Johnstons have clearly chosen to control the narrative, to present a unified front even as their marriage dissolves. This strategy is understandable, perhaps even necessary, but it also raises questions about authenticity. If they were truly being transparent, would they admit to the anger, the hurt, the betrayal, and the grief that inevitably accompany the end of a marriage? Or is it more authentic to present a sanitized version of events that protects their families and their business interests? The psychology behind their relationship is fascinating. Attachment theory suggests that individuals with insecure attachment styles are more likely to seek validation through external sources, including social media fame. The constant need for public approval can become a substitute for genuine intimacy, creating a cycle where the relationship becomes secondary to the public perception of the relationship. For Amber and Trent, the line between their private bond and their public image became so blurred that it's impossible to know where one ended and the other began. They may have become so focused on presenting a perfect relationship to the world that they forgot to actually nurture the relationship itself. This is a trap that many high-profile couples fall into, and once you're in it, it's incredibly difficult to escape. The cultural significance of this divorce extends far beyond the individuals involved. It represents a moment of reckoning for an entire generation that has been raised on the promise of social media success. The Johnstons were not just influencers. They were archetypes, symbols of what was possible in the digital age. Their downfall forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the sustainability of the influencer economy and the long-term effects of turning your private life into public content. Are we building genuine connections, or just performing them for an audience? Is it possible to maintain a healthy relationship while also monetizing it? These are questions that the Johnston divorce forces us to answer, not just for them, but for ourselves. Looking toward the future, Both Amber and Trent face the daunting task of rebuilding their lives as individuals. For Amber, this might mean redefining her personal brand independent of her marriage. She has built a loyal following who admire her strength, her business acumen, and her authenticity. This divorce could be an opportunity for her to emerge as a stronger, more independent figure, someone who doesn't need a partner to be complete. For Trent, the challenge may be different but equally significant.